All right, Zev, you asked a lot of questions. Next time we could just schedule a phone call. It's probably harder to get me on a phone than it is to get me on a live Q&A once a year. We don't talk much about these matters here. Seems to be all they talk about in some circles. What about issues of purity and kosher sexuality, guarding one's eyes and thoughts? What about older singles and others who are struggling? I agree, two things. We don't talk much about these matters here, that's right. And two, that seems to be all they talk about in some circles, absolutely. I don't want to even say some of the things that I've heard. What can I do when the Mishnah in Chagiga says, En dorshin ba'arayot bishlosha? You're not allowed to teach matters of sexuality in groups of 3 people or more. Okay, the Rambam explains there the logic behind that, but we don't teach about these things publicly. Not something we're embarrassed of, not something we're not willing to talk about, but it's something that we, modest things require modesty. I made a video, Modesty Matters, a while back. I can't understand men who run around teaching women about tzniut and about clothing and about modesty and about their skirts and their tights and their sleeves and their hair. Boy, you're a man in a room full of women telling them about their clothing and their body and there are no rabbaniyot in the world that are qualified to teach. What, my wife is not a Talmidah Chachama, she can't teach you these halachot? This is not the kind of thing you think modesty you talk about in a modest fashion. It doesn't make any sense to me. So now you're not asking about modesty, you're asking about purity and kosher sexuality and those things. Those things are important to talk about with a Talmid Chacham that you're close to. Personally, our Chachamim intentionally instituted that these things are not taught in mass, they're taught privately between students and their teachers. About the other circles, so those circles that you're referring to, they're all about Gilgulim and reincarnation, so let's quote something from their camp. The Pele Yoetz, Alav Shalom, Rabbi Eliezer Papo, he writes in his encyclopedia, Pele Yoetz, I think under the word Gilgul, if I had to guess. He writes there that if you ever see a person who's obsessed with talking about a certain mitzvah or certain averah, they're always talking about it, it's always what they talk about, says most likely that's the averah that in a previous reincarnation they were involved in. That's they're always telling people not to do a certain averah because they're the greatest doer, committer of that averah in the world. So, for all the people who are experts on kosher sexuality, I can imagine that their previous life, according to their own sources, maybe it wasn't so kosher. That's all I can say. I'm leaving you with some milda de bdichuta.